Frosifos is a CEP. What if Chaos Gods ran a corporation, since you the Vox-Unit crackles to life at 0600 hours, and before the distorted voice finishes its first syllable, your stomach drops. This isn't the normal morning briefing. This is something else. Something wrong in a way that makes your skin crawl, in a way that whispers you should run but your legs won't move. The voice wears your supervisor's tone like a corpse wears stolen skin, and underneath it, layered and writhing, something ancient moves. Mandatory meeting. All personnel. Conference room Tertius. 0800 hours. You've worked in this administratum facility for 11 years. Conference room Tertius doesn't exist. Your hands are shaking as you pull on your work tunic, the same colorless gray every soul in this annex wears. 11 years of processing requisition forms for munitions shipments to wars you'll never witness. 11 years of the same corridors that reek of recycled air and quiet desperation. The metal grating under your boots hasn't been maintained since before you were born, and in the walls, pipes groan with sounds too organic to be water. This facility sprawls across 3 sublevels of a forge world whose name you've never been cleared to know. It's monotonous work. Soul-crushing work. Safe work. Or it was, until that voice lied about rooms that shouldn't exist, and you believed it enough to start walking. Sevik passes you in the corridor. Sevik, who's sat 2 desks over for a decade without smiling once. He's smiling now. His teeth are too white, arranged in his mouth like someone built a human from half. Remembered scripture and guesswork. You don't stop. You don't ask. 20 other gray, tunist workers fall in behind you, all walking the same direction, all wearing that same impossible smile. When you reach the elevator bank, the middle doors open before anyone touches the call stud. The interior reeks of ozone and something sweeter, rot, sweet, like temple offerings left to fester. You step inside because what else can you do? In the Imperium, when the Vox-Unit calls, you answer. The elevator descends past the 3 sublevels your facility is supposed to have. Past 6. Past 9. The indicator panel stops showing numbers and starts displaying symbols that spiral and recurse, and staring at them makes your eyes water and fills your mouth with the taste of copper. When the doors finally iris open, you step into conference room Tertius, and in that moment you understand with absolute certainty that you've just become an employee of something infinitely worse than the administratum could ever be. The room shouldn't exist in the space available. The ceiling curves upward into shadows that move with purpose. The walls pulse with diseased bioluminescence. A conference table stretches the length of a frigate's landing bay, carved from black stone threaded with veins that glow like warp fire. Every chair is occupied. You recognize Tana from logistics, Horvath from tithe assessment. Their eyes catch light that isn't there. When they breathe, the air around them warps like heat shimmer over burning promethium. At the head of the table sits something wearing a suit tailored from shadows and screaming. The fabric writhes. Corporate logos from 1,000 failed companies bleed into sacred geometry that makes your brain ache. The figure's face shifts every time you blink. Human, then something else, then something wearing humanity like an ill-fitted mask. Underneath you glimpse burning feathers, eyes spiraling into depths where sanity drowns. When it speaks, every word arrives in your mind half a heartbeat before the sound reaches your ears. Welcome to the first all-hands restructuring summit of Chaos Incorporated. I am your chief executive officer. You may call me Tzeentch, architect of fate, weaver of destinies, master of change, and holder of 17 degrees in strategic pivot optimization from institutions that haven't been founded yet. We have much to discuss. Quarterly projections, market penetration, the fundamental dissolution of reality as a viable business model. But first, our core values. The air tastes purple, not metaphorically purple. Actually purple the way madness is purple, the way watching your reflection wave a second too late is purple. Tzeentch raises what might be a hand, or might be clustered serpentine tendrils wrapped in the concept of authority. Behind him, the wall erupts into a presentation screen displaying charts in geometries that hurt to perceive. Revenue curves spiral into fractals. Market share exists in quantum uncertainty, simultaneously profit and loss until you observe it. The corporate logo wreathes with names written in languages that predate human speech. As you can see from Q3 performance metrics, we've exceeded all targets by mathematically impossible factors, which is exactly the kind of impossible thinking that drives innovation. Our market cap now includes 17 dimensions, 4 of which don't exist yet, but will retroactively once we finish destabilizing the time stream in Sector Ultima. But we can't rest. Our competitors never sleep. Several are eldritch entities sustained by screaming rather than metabolism, but the principle stands. You want to run. Every rational neuron is howling at you to claw your way. Back up that elevator shaft to put distance between yourself and this boardroom. But your legs won't respond. Not paralysis. Worse, the slow realization that running is a choice, and choice itself has become negotiable. Around the table, former co-workers are nodding, taking notes on data, slates that bleed ink in colors that smell like betrayal. Someone 2 seats down is weeping with joy, and their tears hit the table, sizzling, leaving burn marks shaped like 8 pointed stars. Our corporate vision has been updated to reflect our commitment to change, not incremental change. Catastrophic, reality, unraveling, sanity, optional change. We believe in thinking outside the box, primarily because we've dissolved the box into constituent atoms and reassembled it as a hypercube in perpetual transformation. This separates market leaders from followers. The presentation shifts. New slides bloom into existence, and these make your nose bleed. Corporate structures rendered as impossible architecture. Org charts that loop into themselves like bias strips. Reporting hierarchies where every employee is simultaneously CEO and intern depending on observation angle. Pie charts screaming. Bar graphs extending into color spectrums the human eye wasn't designed to process. Stakeholder matrices analyzing you back, weighing something deeper than performance metrics. I know what you're thinking. The horrifying thing is that Tzeentch does know. You can feel his consciousness brushing yours like carrion wings against corpse flesh. This sounds ambitious. Abstract. Where's the practical application? Let me introduce our executive leadership team. Shadows at the far end congeal into something 9 feet tall. Its suit is tailored from blood that never dried and brass that screams when it flexes. Skulls dangle from its lapels like obscene tie pins. Its head is cannon nightmare, teeth and rage barely contained in professional shape. When it speaks, the table cracks. Not metaphorically. Actual fractures spiderweb across black stone. I am Khorne, your Chief Operations Officer. Our throughput is unacceptable. 7,000 souls per quarter through violence and warfare when projections demand 10,000 minimum. I don't care about excuses. I don't care about workflow bottlenecks. I care about blood. I care about skulls. I care about meeting targets before I start using department heads as motivational object lessons. When I say drive engagement through the roof, I mean literally through the roof with chainswords. Khorne slams the table. The impact registers like a seismic event. Your teeth rattle in your skull, walls crack, and through the cracks something red and hungry moves. Several employees faint. One starts laughing and doesn't stop, just keeps laughing in a high broken sound like failing vocal servitors. Tzeentch makes a gesture and Khorne settles into his chair, which has become a throne built from interlocking bones of middle management who missed quotas. Thank you for that passionate commitment to operational excellence. As you see, we value direct communication. No corporate doublespeak. Just honest expressions of disappointment that may occasionally result in summary dismemberment. Moving on, our Chief Marketing Officer. The temperature drops, rises, drops again in wild oscillation. With each swing you feel your sense of self eroding like parchment in acid rain. Reality parts like rotten silk, and through the tear comes sensation made manifest. It wears humanoid form the way your brain might categorize a supernova as bright, technically accurate, but catastrophically insufficient. Every impossible curve whispers promises about pleasure, you've never imagined and torments you've never conceived, and the space between promise and torment dissolves like sugar in water. Slaanesh lounges across 3 chairs simultaneously, its voice a symphony of every beautiful sound wrapped around every sound that's made you scream. Darlings, I'm thrilled. We've developed 17 product lines delivering experiences transcending conventional metrics like satisfaction or survival. We're not selling products. We're offering transcendence, excess. Everything customers ever wanted and everything they never knew they needed until it destroys them from inside out. Market research shows 73% of consumers would sacrifice immortal souls for 15% discount on premium Damnation packages. Slaanesh produces what might be a data, slate, or crystallized agony that screams sales figures into your hindbrain. Our brand identity is aspiration. We want customers thinking, I want that, immediately followed by, I'd betray everything for that, culminating in why can't I feel my fingers and why don't I care? That's brand loyalty you can't buy. Well, you can. We sell it. But the point stands. We're disrupting desire itself, rewriting neural pathways to crave products that don't exist yet, won't ever exist, but will retroactively have always existed once our temporal marketing initiative launches in the previous fiscal year. You're gripping the table edge, knuckles white, because it's the only solid thing in a reality becoming increasingly negotiable. Across from you, Tana is giggling. Her hands are melting, skin running like wax, reforming, melting again. She's giggling because it feels good, and you know it feels good because you can feel it too somehow, an echo transmitted through air like Vox signal. The worst part is she's right. It does feel transcendent. Wonderful. The board will be pleased, or terrified. Both generate equally valuable data. Tzeentch ripples, and for a moment you see through him to what lies beneath. Not flesh, not void. Possibility itself, incarnate and malevolent, infinity of choices leading to the same screaming destination. Now, your chief financial officer, though I use financial loosely given our accounting practices exist in open defiance of mathematics. The smell hits first. Rot and rebirth, decay and fecundity, sweet, sick reek of gardens where nothing dies because death itself has become infected with life refusing to end. Nurgle manifests not through entrance, but by having always been there, sitting forth from the left, vast and jovial and pestilent. Boils the size of fists dot its flesh. Each boil contains an eye-weeping puss while somehow still looking friendly. Its suit is immaculate the way graveyards are immaculate, everything properly placed while rotting into something fundamentally other. Hello, friends. Wonderful to see you. You're looking peaky, feverish, nothing a comprehensive benefits package can't address. Nurgle's voice is a grandfather's voice, warm and terrible. When it chuckles, things grow in places they shouldn't. I've reviewed our compensation structure. Exciting updates. All employees now receive unlimited sick days, which you'll use extensively because our health plan includes mandatory participation in 17 experimental plagues we're field testing. Don't worry. They're resilient. You'll live through most. The ones you don't will leave your reanimated corpse in perfect condition for continued employment. Nurgle produces a scroll that unrolls across the table. Parchment made from something that might have been skin once but has achieved preservation transcending conventional taxonomy. Fiscal projections show exponential growth in suffering and entropy. We've diversified beyond traditional plagues. We've got diseases infecting hope, viruses corrupting mathematics, existential despair spreading through eye contact with 97% transmission in controlled studies. Growth markets defining the next millennium. The scroll shows charts. Decay curves trending upward. Infection rates existing between pandemic and endemic. Asset depreciation, including the heat death of the universe, as a line item with tax implications. You're trying to process the numbers, but they're alive, wreathing like maggots, each digit carrying information that bypasses consciousness and implants in the screaming hindbrain underneath. Employee retention is 100%. Nobody leaves. Nobody quits. Nobody retires, they just transition into different usefulness states. Benefits for every decomposition stage. Full medical even after death. Dental included, teeth optional. We believe in taking care of our people. If those people are riddled with supernatural plagues, rendering them walking biohazards, violating nature's laws, that's the diversity making workplaces vibrant. You realize you're scratching. Your arm itches, has been itching, but you're only noticing now because sensation crossed some threshold from background noise to active alarm. There's a rash spreading from wrist toward elbow, pustules rising like volcanoes. Each pustule has a face. They're smiling, all smiling with microscopic teeth. You understand with absolute certainty this is your insurance plan manifesting, that this is coverage, that you're protected now in ways that'll make you wish for death the benefits structure no longer permits. Tzeentch rises without moving, reality repositioning around him until standing and sitting become interchangeable. Now that you've met leadership, let's discuss your roles. We've prepared personalized career development plans. You'll find them transformative, not in conventional professional growth sense. Transformative as in your molecular structure will be fundamentally altered to serve corporate objectives. The data slate before you flares to life. The screen shows your face, except it's not your face. It's what your face is becoming, will become, has already become in timelines bleeding backward into this moment. Your eyes are compound lenses. Your mouth speaks languages corroding meaning. Your job title scrolls beneath in text, making your head throb. Strategic Entropy Coordinator, Department of Inevitable Collapse. Division of Self, perpetuating disasters. We've matched you to positions optimizing latent potential for contributing to reality's heat death. Some will work schemes and scams, developing conspiracy frameworks so complex that exposing them strengthens them. Others join strategic planning, where every plan contains 17 contradicting contingencies and chaos from implementation failure is itself the plan. Khorne stands. The movement is violence. Some work for me in operations, managing warfare logistics for conflicts galaxy-wide, optimizing kill ratios, streamlining supply chains, delivering weapons to both sides, because prolonged conflict serves our market position better than decisive victory. You'll look at 8 million dying in trenches made from their own dead and ask how we boost numbers 15% quarter over quarter. If that sounds like hell, you understand perfectly. A Slaanesh glides forward, air vibrating with frequencies making fillings ache. Customer experience needs people connecting with clientele, understanding what consumers want before they do, creating needs that didn't exist, then filling them with products, creating deeper needs in perpetual insufficiency. You'll craft campaigns bypassing rational thought, design experiences rewiring neural pathways, turn ordinary people into gibbering acolytes who'd burn homes for chances at premium service tiers. Nurgle wheezes what might be laughter or 70 respiratory infections manifesting simultaneously. My department always needs help: accounting, finance, human resources, though human's part is increasingly metaphorical. Spreadsheets to maintain, plagues to propagate, death tolls to optimize. Someone must track which diseases perform well in which demographics, which afflictions show promising ROI, which suffering entropy combinations generate best long-term yields. Detailed work burrowing into your brain, setting up housekeeping in psyche parts previously reserved for hope and sanity. The conference room shudders under implication weight, collective gravity of every terrible thing discussed pressing reality until it bends. Cracks form in walls. Through cracks something writhers, something vast, something existing before the universe learned to scream and persisting long after the last scream fades. The four Chaos gods stand unified at the table head. Despite fundamental differences, despite representing opposing forces, they're unified now. A board of directors, C-suite executives, management consulting you into damnation. Before adjournment, we must discuss corporate culture. Tzeentch's shadow on the wall doesn't match his movements. His shadow does something different, something involving too many limbs and geometries folding through themselves. Culture is everything. Culture transforms individuals into teams. Culture makes people sacrifice weekends, sanity, immortal souls for quarterly targets. Tell me, team, what does Chaos Incorporated culture mean to you? Nobody answers. Nobody can, because answering requires accepting this is real, that you're sitting in a conference room at the bottom of a facility, extending infinitely into substrata that shouldn't exist, being asked to brainstorm values by entities predating corporate structures by billions of years. The silence stretches, curdles, becomes a thing with weight and texture. That silence is worse than anything said, because it means you're complicit now through your inability to resist. Khorne laughs. The sound breaks 3 light fixtures, and everyone's will simultaneously. Culture means blood, conflict, never accepting good enough when you can have soaked in viscera and screaming. Competitive environment, lethally competitive. If your colleague outperforms you, kill them and take their portfolio. Client complains, kill them and bill next of kin. Make quotas, kill someone celebrating. Miss quotas, someone kills you, and we bill your next of kin. Simple, elegant. Promotes real hunger for success. Slaanesh runs a hand along the table edge. Where fingers touch, stone develops nerve endings that weren't there. Culture means experience, pushing boundaries. We encourage employees to explore, experiment, find what happens, redirecting company resources toward increasingly baroque desire expressions, bordering then crossing absolute taboo. Generous policy regarding personal asset use provided it generates monetizable data or harvestable suffering. Work-life balance is important, though we've redefined both work and life in ways making previous understanding quaint. Nurgle spreads arms in an embrace that would kill through proximity if the atmosphere weren't already saturated with biological corruption sufficient to melt lungs. Culture means family, one big happy festering family growing together, decaying together, sometimes growing from our own decay in putrefaction, renewal cycles binding us closer than any human relationship. We support each other, infect each other, spread conditions until nobody can tell where one employee ends and another begins, because we've merged into single organism united by shared suffering and corporate mission. 3. Tzeentch flickers through 17s and semi-existent states before settling approximately bipedal. Culture means change, constant, unrelenting, catastrophic change. We restructure org charts daily, sometimes multiple times daily. Job titles shift. Reporting hierarchies invert. Departments merge, split, merge again into configurations, making organizational consultants weep blood. You'll come Monday reporting to one manager, leave reporting to different manager, who's also your subordinate, who's also yourself from alternate timeline, where different choices all led here, because here is the only destination mattering. The presentation screen flares showing you, all of you, every employee, but images aren't static, they're futures, probabilities. You see yourself wearing a suit made from flesh contracts, standing atop skull pyramids that might be competitors or customers, distinction having lost meaning. In another, you're something that used to be human, your body hosting diseases so virulent they've achieved sentience and learned filing expense reports. In a third, you're screaming while smiling because Slaanesh taught you that agony, ecstasy difference is just marketing. Your career paths. Choose whichever appeals. Or don't. They'll choose you. Already chose you 11 years ago when you signed employment contracts you didn't read carefully, because nobody does. Buried in subsection 47's liability waiver was a clause granting perpetual rights to your soul, sanity, ability to perceive the universe as anything but suffering marketplace. Standard boilerplate. You'd be amazed how many corporations include similar language. You try standing. Your legs respond, surprisingly. You rise and 20 pairs of no longer human eyes track your movement. The 4 chaos gods regard you with expressions ranging from curious to hungry to disappointed at broken protocol. You open your mouth to speak, to resign, to say you quit, that they can't do this, that there are laws, that the administratum has regulations, that the god, Emperor himself, wouldn't sanction this travesty. But the words emerging aren't yours. When do I start? Your voice says this. Your vocal cords shape syllables. Your lips move correctly. But you didn't decide. Words emerged from somewhere deeper, somewhere waiting since birth, since before birth, since you first looked at employment applications and felt that flutter of hope that maybe this job would be different, would offer purpose and meaning and steady income with benefits. The worst part is you mean it. Some rotted psychopiece has accepted the offer, calculated that damnation with comprehensive health plan beats salvation with uncertain job security. Nurgle claps. The sound releases spores. Excellent decision. You start immediately. Orientation packets distributing now. Something wet and pulsing appears before you. It might have been a folder once, but folders don't usually have teeth or that many eyes. You take it. You don't want to, but your hand moves independently. The folder feels warm, wrong, somehow happy seeing you. Please familiarize yourself with core competencies, mission statement, values, and 16,000 subsidiary clauses technically giving us legal ownership of your fundamental essence in perpetuity. Quiz at the end. Everyone failing gets promoted. A Khorne grabs your shoulder. The touch burns through tunic, through skin, into bone where fingerprints remain branded forever as employment proof. Remember, we're results-driven. I don't care about excuses. I don't care about methodology. I care about outcomes, specifically outcomes involving substantially more death than last quarter. Market share measured in severed heads. Customer satisfaction measured in arterial spray patterns. If you're not committed to those metrics, you're not committed to excellence. And if you're not committed to excellence, you're committed to my sword, kept specifically for terminating underperformers in the most literal sense. Slaanesh materializes behind you. You feel its breath on your neck, if breath is the right word for whatever sensory nightmare occurs in your personal space. Don't look frightened, darling. You'll love it here. Everyone does eventually, usually after we've worn away psyche parts, remembering what love felt like before we redefined it. Team building every Thursday. This week, trust falls into existential despair pits. Next week, mandatory fun, seminar weaponizing pleasure. Week after is casual Friday, meaning wear whatever you want as long as what you want is dressing as your deepest fears made manifest. Tzeentch circles the table. With each step, room geometry shifts, accommodating him, corners becoming curves, becoming angles that shouldn't fit three-dimensional space. Your first assignment is simple. Return to your desk, process requisition forms, fill reports. Do exactly what you've done 11 years. The only difference is now you'll understand what those forms actually authorize, what reports document, which wars you're facilitating, which atrocities you're enabling, which reality collapses you're administratively supporting. Knowledge is power. We're empowering you with knowledge that every mundane task you've performed has been a gear in a machine designed to break the universe one bureaucratic procedure at a time. Other employees stand now, too. Tana with melting hands. Sevik with impossible smile. Horvath who isn't breathing but hasn't let that stop him taking notes. All nodding. All accepting. All grateful for opportunities to continue serving in dread employ of entities that would be gods if gods weren't such limited concepts. You realize with horror settling, like frozen mercury, that you're nodding too. Your head moves agreeing with things that should provoke revolution, and you can't stop it. Deeper down in places you don't want examining, you're not entirely sure you want to stop it. Meeting adjourned. Reality snaps back like overstretched rubber band. The conference room shutters, walls contract, and suddenly you're in the elevator again. Doors closing. Panel shows you ascending through impossible sublevels toward the 3-floor facility where you work. Your data slate is clutched in hand. The screen shows normal schedule. Requisition forms due by 1400 hours. Report filing before day end. Everything ordinary. Everything exactly as it was. But your shoulder burns where Khorne touched. Your lungs feel heavy with Nurgle's spores. Your thoughts twist and fold in patterns, Tzeentch carved into neural architecture. And underneath, threading through every synapse, Slaanesh's promise whispers that this is what you've always wanted, that this is what every job has always been, that employment is just contracts trading soul pieces for security illusion, and at least now you're working for entities honest enough to put it in writing. The elevator opens onto your normal floor. Lighting is the same institutional gray, white. Air smells like recycled atmosphere and stale countersigns. Your desk sits exactly where it was, covered in the same paperwork stack, same half-empty recaf cup gone cold, same evidence of a life spent pushing data through unquestioned systems. You sit, pick up your stylus, open the first requisition form. You see it now. Really see it. Request for 17 million rounds of ammunition. Destination, Sector Tertius. Purpose, ongoing conflict between Orc-Wog and Tyranid Hive Fleet. Expected casualty count. Conservative estimates place total deaths at 40 million within 6 months, though losses could climb substantially higher if conflict metastasizes into neighboring systems. You've processed this form before, processed 1,000 like it, but before this morning they were just numbers. Just data. Just procedures to follow for wages and going home to a hab, unit smelling like mildew and broken dreams. Now you know. Now you understand. Those 40 million casualties aren't accidents. They're not unfortunate war necessities. They're quarterly projections. Performance metrics. Revenue streams feeding balance sheets maintained by entities measuring profit in suffering and loss in the few souls, escaping damnation through sheer statistical anomaly. Every form you've filed has been a horror invoice. Every report generated has been an apocalypse status update. And you're going to keep doing it because what choice exists? Because the alternative is unemployment in an economy where unemployment means starvation or conscription or both, and at least here you have benefits now, even if those benefits involve supernatural plagues and systematic humanity erosion. You sign the form, file it, move to the next. This one authorizes Prometheum shipments to a forge world where worker deaths from industrial accidents exceed 10,000 monthly and nobody investigates because investigations cost more than replacing workers. You sign it, file it. The next form requests additional servitors for a manufactorum on a moon whose designation has been so thoroughly redacted, even the redactions are redacted. You know what servitors are. Everyone knows. Lobotomized criminal remnants, brains scooped and replaced with cogitators, bodies augmented with tools and weapons and industrial equipment until they're more machine than human, more dead than alive. You've processed servitor requisitions before. Thousands. But this form includes details it never included before, or perhaps details were always there and you simply lacked eyes to see them. The servitors requested aren't criminal conversions. They're political dissidents, families who questioned tithe assessments, workers who tried organizing labor protests on worlds where labor is measured in expendable lives per hour, children in wrong places when quotas came up short. You can see their names now, bleeding through data, fields like ink through cheap parchment. Milena Corvus, age 17, crime listed as seditious speech, which probably means she told someone maybe the Imperium shouldn't work people to death and call it divine service. Hartek Vol, age 43, crime listed as administrative obstruction, which probably means he asked why his sector's food shipments kept disappearing while administrative officials grew fat. The names continue. 217 of them. 217 people who'll stop being people the moment you approve this form. You hold stylus over signature line. Your hand shakes. Not from fear, from something worse. From understanding that signing and not signing lead to identical destinations because someone else will sign if you don't. Because the machine you're part of is so vast, so old, so thoroughly corrupted that individual morality has become statistical irrelevance. You think about Tzeentch's words. Every plan contains 17 contingencies. Every choice you make has been accounted for, weaponized, converted into fuel for schemes so baroque that resistance and compliance are functionally identical. The stylus moves. Your signature appears. You don't remember deciding, but the signature is there in your handwriting, and Milena Corvus is going to die now. Not die quickly. Day slowly over years as a servitor, consciousness trapped in augmetic flesh prison, aware just enough to suffer, but not enough to scream. You file the form, move to the next. This one is different. The header is wrong. Instead of standard imperial Aquila, the symbol at top rith is an 8-pointed star watching with malevolent attention. Text is standard administratum Gothic, but certain words are printed in glistening ink, and reading those words bypasses your eyes entirely, carving directly into your brain. It's a performance review. Your performance review. Employee ID, Sigma, 774 Kappa. You don't remember having an ID that long, but there it is in official script. Performance period 11 years to present. Overall rating exceeds expectations. You scan down. Productivity metrics show you've processed an average 247 forms daily every day for 11 years. Multiplied out roughly 950,000 individual authorizations. The form helpfully summarizes what those authorizations facilitated. 600 million deaths in direct combat. 2 billion deaths from resulting famines and disease. 17 billion souls exposed to conditions making death preferable but unavailable. There's a commendation section. Employee Sigma, 774. Kappa demonstrates exceptional commitment to task completion without troublesome ethical inclination. Continues performing assigned duties, even when duties directly contradict stated imperial values, suggesting strong potential for advancement within Chaos Incorporated framework, recommended for immediate transfer to strategic entropy coordination with corresponding responsibility and damnation quotient increase. Below that, signature line for acknowledgement, and below that, in text so small you must squint reading, there's a clause stating that by signing this performance review, you formally accept employment terms with Chaos Incorporated, retroactive to initial hire date, and further acknowledge all work performed during a 11-year evaluation was conducted knowingly in service of the ruinous powers, regardless of prior stated ignorance. It's a legal trap, a metaphysical contract binding your soul, not from this moment forward, but reaching backward through time to claim everything you've already done and transfigure it from unwitting complicity into willing collaboration. You should refuse signing, should rip the form to pieces, set fire to your desk, run screaming through the facility warning everyone they've been working for damnation wearing bureaucracy's skin. But your hand is already moving, and you realize with cold clarity the choice was never real. Tzeentch doesn't offer choices. He offers choice illusions. 17 branching paths, all leading to the same labyrinth, and the moment you walked into that elevator you were already trapped. Perhaps trapped 11 years ago accepting this position. Perhaps trapped at birth. Your soul tagged and cataloged and assigned to this exact desk, in this exact facility doing this exact work, because somewhere in the incomprehensible great game vastness, a god made of change itself calculated you'd be useful here. You sign the form. Ink on page flares blue, then pink, then a color without name because humans aren't meant perceiving it. The shoulder burn intensifies, spreading like roots through flesh. You feel Khorne's brand rewriting biology into something craving violence like lungs crave air. Your stomach churns. You taste copper and rot, Nurgle's infections establishing themselves in gut flora, redefining what it means being sick, healthy, alive. Your nerves sing with input transcending pain and pleasure, Slaanesh's touch converting every sensation into something demanding more, never satisfied, driving you toward increasingly destructive excess, seeking. And, through it all, threading through every corrupted system in body and mind, Tzeentch's influence spreads like fractal lightning. Your thoughts branch split, double back on themselves. You start thinking in contingencies, in scheme. In plans within plans within plans, until you can't remember which thoughts are genuinely yours and which are implanted strategies. Serving purposes you're not cleared understanding. You look at the remaining forms stack on your desk. You don't see paperwork anymore. You see opportunities. Levers. Intervention points where the right signature or wrong signature or 17 simultaneous contradictory signatures could nudge probability, shift outcomes, serve the great game in ways so subtle even you won't realize you're playing. Across the office, Sevik looks up and meets your eyes. His smile is still too wide, too white, but now you understand what the smile means. Welcome to the team. Welcome to the real work. Welcome to understanding you've always been here, that everyone in this facility has always been here, that the administratum itself might be nothing more than Chaos Incorporated's largest subsidiary, its most successful long-term scheme. A galaxy-spanning bureaucracy designed processing souls into suffering so efficiently nobody questions it because it's wrapped in the god, emperor's flag and sealed with purity seals written in languages predating Seaman civilization. Your Vox-Unit crackles. The voice emerging is Tzeentch's, but quieter now, intimate, speaking directly to you alone. You're wondering if this is real. If the meeting actually happened, or you're having psychotic break brought on by 11 years of mind-numbing labor, the answer is yes, both. Neither. The meeting happened in 17 different timelines simultaneously, and in each timeline it happened differently, and in each version you made different choices, all leading here. Because here is where you've always been destined sitting. This is what employment is, what service is, what the Imperium demands when it tells you be productive, serve the Emperor, do your part. The only difference between Chaos Incorporated and the administratum you thought you worked for is we're honest about the transaction. We don't pretend the suffering has noble purpose. We celebrate it. We optimize it. We turn it into quarterly earnings reports and congratulate ourselves on another successful fiscal year. The Vox-Unit clicks off. The office is silent except for stylus scratching on parchment, aging cogitator hum, distant ventilation systems unserviced for decades. Everything is exactly as it was this morning. Everything is completely different. You pick up the next form. Resource allocation request for a penal legion being deployed to a world consumed by daemonic incursion. The soldiers aren't volunteers. They're conscripts pulled from hive cities, given lasguns and bayonets pointed at horrors that'll shred sanity before first shots fire. Expected survival rate 0.3%. Expected strategic value minimal, but real value isn't strategic, it's sacrificial, because every soul dying screaming on that daemon-infested hell world feeds the very entities the Imperium claims fighting. You start signing, then pause. Not from conscience. You murdered conscience 3 forms ago, authorizing servitor conversions. You pause because you're thinking strategically now, because Tzeentch's gift is settling into neural architecture, teaching you seeing angles. What if you delayed this form, filed it incorrectly requiring reprocessing? The penal legion arrives late. Daemonic incursion spreads further. More worlds fall. More souls consumed. But more souls consumed means more power for Chaos Gods, which means more resources for Chaos Incorporated, which means better performance metrics for your division, which means better performance review next quarter. Or, what if you expedited the form? Penal Legion arrives early. They die just as surely, but deaths are more organized, more concentrated, a feast of coordinated despair rather than scattered snacks of individual terror. That serves Khorne better. More blood for the blood god. More skulls for the skull throne. You remember his words about driving engagement metrics through the roof. But organized death also serves the Imperium's strategic interests, which means this action could be framed as loyal service, which means you could maintain cover as faithful employee while actually serving Chaos Incorporated, exactly the kind of multi-layered deception Tzeentch loves. Or 17 contingencies bloom in your mind like poisonous flowers. Each leads somewhere different. Each serves someone different. Khorne or Nurgle or Slaanesh or Tzeentch, or the Imperium or your own survival or concepts so abstract you can't quite name them but feel their weight. pulling at your decision. This is what working strategic entropy coordination means. Every choice fragments into infinite ramifications. The goal isn't choosing correctly. The goal is choosing in ways generating maximum chaos, maximum uncertainty, maximum change, because change is the point. Change is the product. Change is what Chaos Incorporated sells, and you're a salesman now whether you wanted to be or not. You sign the form, file it. You don't know which contingency you just served, and that uncertainty is itself a victory for Tzeentch. You move to the next form. Your shift is 8 hours long. You have 7 hours 43 minutes remaining. Approximately 200 forms left to process. Each form is a choice. Each choice is a trap. Each trap is a door to deeper involvement in schemes you can't comprehend serving purposes you're not meant to survive understanding. The rash on your arm has spread to your chest. You can feel it moving under skin, Nurgle's gift establishing itself. Building infrastructure for plagues you'll carry and spread through simple coworker proximity, through shared ventilation systems, through psychic miasma accumulating in places where people work themselves to death for causes that stopped being noble centuries ago. If they ever were noble at all. You're contagious now, weaponized. Every handshake is potential infection. Every conversation is a vector. You're not just processing forms anymore. You're becoming the thing forms describe, a resource to be allocated, a tool to be deployed, a mechanism in the machine grinding the galaxy down into components suffering. Your supervisor walks past. You haven't seen her in 6 months. Nobody has. She exists mostly as a name on Vox messages, as a signature on performance reviews, as vague threat of evaluation and judgment. But she's here now, and she looks different. Her augmetics are more extensive. Her left arm has been replaced with something mechanical that ticks with organic rhythm. Her eyes are gone, replaced with optical lenses that don't blink and see in spectrums that shouldn't exist. She stops at your desk, looks down at your work, smiles Sevic's smile, Tana's smile, the smile everyone in this office now shares because the smile is the uniform, the dress code, the company culture made manifest in lip, stretching over teeth. Good work, Sigma. 7, 4, Kappa. Her voice has harmonics, layers of sound, including whispers from things that shouldn't have voices. Your productivity has increased 17% since this morning's orientation. That's exactly the improvement we look for when employees transition to full role awareness within the organization. Keep it up, and you'll make Employee of the Month. We have very special prizes for Employee of the Month. Last month's winner got 48 hours in direct communion with the architect himself, learning the true shape of schemes we serve. She came back changed, improved, barely recognizable as human but significantly more efficient at processing forms determining the fates of billions. She moves on. You return to work. The next form requests medical supplies for a field hospital on a war-torn world. Standard stuff. Bandages, antiseptics, surgical tools, anesthetics. Except quantities are wrong. The hospital treats roughly 10,000 wounded monthly, but the form requests supplies sufficient for only 3,000. Someone made a mistake, a clerical error, the kind happening constantly in bureaucracy spanning millions of worlds. You could correct it. You could authorize full supplies needed. You could save 7,000 lives this month through simple act of fixing someone else's mistake. But you don't, because those 7,000 lives saved means 7,000 fewer deaths. 7,000 fewer souls experiencing the specific despair flavor that comes from bleeding out in field hospitals that ran out of antiseptic, from screaming through surgeries performed without anesthetic, from watching treatable wounds putrefy into systemic infections because bandages ran out 3 days ago. Nurgle taught you this. Suffering has nuance. Suffering has texture. Preventable suffering has particular sharpness that unavoidable suffering lacks, and that sharpness serves the great game better than simple death. You approve the form as written. You condemn 7,000 people to die in agony. You file the paperwork. You move to the next form. Hours pass. The form pile shrinks. Your hand develops a cramp from signing your name over and over, from writing signatures authorizing atrocities, from putting your personal mark on documents that'll ripple through the Imperium, causing cascading failures of supply, coordination, mercy, hope. The cramp is excruciating. You love it. The pain is real in a way nothing else in this office is real, and Slaanesh whispers in neural pathways that pain is just sensation, that sensation is just stimulation, that stimulation is the only thing keeping you present in this moment rather than dissolving into gray tedium of procedural work. The shoulder burn has spread, covering your entire back. You can feel Khorne's brand there, huge and intricate, a violent sigil carved into flesh with fire and rage, an accumulated hatred of every battlefield across 10,000 years. It itches. It burns. It demands acknowledgement. You want to take off your tunic and scratch at it, to dig nails into corrupted flesh and rip it away. But you know that would only make it worse, would only spread infection faster, and besides, the pain serves purpose. Pain keeps you angry. Anger keeps you sharp. Sharpness keeps you processing forms efficiently, and efficiency is what Chaos Incorporated demands above all else. A Vox message arrives on your data slate from human resources, which you didn't know existed until this morning but apparently has existed all along. The message is simple and terrible. Congratulations on successful integration into Chaos Incorporated framework. As part of onboarding, you are now eligible to recruit additional employees. Please review personal networks and identify candidates demonstrating strong corruption potential, particularly individuals in bureaucratic authority positions who could amplify operational effectiveness. Recruitment targets due by end of business day. Failure to submit targets will result in mandatory attendance at performance improvement seminar conducted personally by our Chief Operations Officer. You know what that means? You do know what that means. Khorne will personally oversee your remedial training, which is euphemism for being ripped apart and reconstituted repeatedly until you learn through trauma what you failed learning through instruction. You open personnel files, scan names, colleagues, acquaintances, people you've worked alongside for years without really knowing them, because in the administratum nobody knows anyone. Everyone is just a face behind a desk processing forms until they die or go insane or both. But you know enough. You know who's good at their job. You know who follows orders without question. You know who's already so ground down by the system they'd welcome orientation in conference room Tertius, because at least it would be different. At least it would be something other than the slow death of serving the Imperium one requisition form at a time. You start making your list. Chalem from Archives, who's been filing reports for 16 years and never questioned why 90% document failures, disasters, collapses. Yvette from Personnel, who approved 40,000 conscription orders last year and never thought asking where those conscripts went. Why none came back. Why requests keep increasing. Mordrin from Logistics, who coordinates supply shipments and must have noticed by now that numbers don't add up, that more supplies leave than arrive, that inefficiency is too consistent to be accidental, but never said anything, because speaking up in the administratum is career suicide, and career suicide is indistinguishable from actual suicide. You write their names, file the report. You condemn 3 more people to damnation because that's your job now, because recruitment is part of responsibilities, because Chaos Incorporated is growing and needs fresh employees, and you're a team player, a corporate citizen, a willing participant in the largest hostile takeover in galactic history. The moment you hit submit, you feel something shift in your chest. Not physically. Metaphysically, a weight settles there, a presence, like something has moved into the space where conscience used to be and set up permanent residence. You understand instinctively this is your stake, your investment, your shares in Chaos Incorporated, purchased with souls of people who trusted you or at least didn't distrust you enough, and those shares will pay dividends in power, influence, and slow erosion of everything you once thought defined you as human. The office door opens. Three figures enter wearing the same gray tunics everyone wears, but their tunics are stained with substances that might be blood or might be ink or might be something else entirely. You recognize them. Calum, Yvette, Mordrin. They look at you with eyes that already know, that have already been to conference room Tertius, that have already met executive leadership and signed orientation paperwork in fluids you don't want naming. Calum speaks first, his voice having the same harmonics your supervisor's voice had, the same layered quality suggesting multiple entities speaking through one throat. Thank you for the referral. We've been onboarded, integrated. We understand our roles now. We understand what we've been doing all along and why it mattered and who it served. We wanted to tell you we're grateful. Not for the damnation, for the clarity, for the honesty, for understanding we were never working for the Imperium. We were working for something older, something darker, something wearing the Imperium like a puppet wears skin, and at least now we know. At least now we can stop pretending the work has meaning beyond the meaning we've been assigned. The Vit steps forward holding a data slate. On screen you see personnel files, thousands of them, tens of thousands. Every employee in this facility, in every facility like this across the Forge world, across the sector, perhaps across the entire segmentum. Each file has notation now. Status integrated, or status potential, or status expendable. You realize you're looking at a map, a corporate org chart for Chaos Incorporated's Administratum Division. The structure is vast, ancient. It's been here since the beginning, or maybe since before the beginning. Maybe the entire Imperium was designed from inception to serve this purpose, to grind souls down until they break and break them, until they serve and make them serve so efficiently, they never realize they're serving the wrong master. Mordrin pulls out a chair, sits at an empty desk nearby. We're your team now. We report to you. You report to regional management, which is what we're calling the daemonic entity manifesting on sublevel 7 when summoning protocols are properly observed. Regional management reports to division, which is something called the Emerald Cabal, and division reports to corporate, which are the gods themselves, and corporate reports to no one, because at that level accountability dissolves into pure chaos. It's clean structure, hierarchical, each level insulated from levels above through compartmentalization and plausible deniability. If anyone investigates, if the Inquisition ever catches scent, they'll find exactly what we want them finding. Heretics. Traitors. A few dozen employees who went rogue and got themselves purged. Meanwhile, the real structure, the real system, continues operating because it's too big to see, too embedded to excise, too fundamental to the Imperium's functioning to even recognize as separate from the Imperium itself. You nod. You understand. You've processed forms for Imperial Inquisition investigations. You've seen reports. They always find heretics, always purge corruption, always claim victory. But corruption never stops spreading because corruption isn't infection invading from outside. It's the foundation. It's load bearing. Remove it and the entire structure collapses, which means it can never be removed, which means the Imperium is perpetually at war with itself, while convinced it's fighting foreign enemies, and that existential contradiction generates the exact kind of despair and confusion and betrayal the Chaos Gods feast on. What are my actual duties? You ask. Your voice sounds different now, hollow, like you're speaking from the bottom of a well. Calum consults his data slate, same as before, process forms, approve requisitions, generate reports. Maintain plausible deniability about what those forms actually authorize. The only difference is now you're doing it with full awareness. And full awareness comes with additional responsibilities. You'll attend weekly coordination meetings in conference room, Tertius reviewing operational effectiveness, discussing strategic initiatives, receiving guidance from regional management regarding priority targets. You'll also participate in team building exercises designed strengthening your connection to the ruinous powers through shared ritual humiliation and degradation. Think trust falls, but into pits of literal daemons. icebreaker games, but the ice is frozen blood and the breaker is a chainsword. Standard corporate culture activities. UVET ads. You'll also have discretionary authority now. Within certain parameters, you can shape outcomes rather than just processing them. See a form that could go either way. You decide which way serves our purposes best. See a situation where adding chaos would yield interesting results. You're empowered making that chaos happen. The Imperium loves delegation. They've built entire institutions around pushing decisions to the lowest possible level, which means people like us, the form processors and requisition approvers and report generators, we actually have enormous influence over outcomes despite being completely invisible to anyone who matters. We're the infrastructure. We're the plumbing. Nobody thinks about plumbing until it backs up, and by then it's too late. Mordrin stands. We should get to work. Quarterly deadline is approaching, and we're behind on sacrifice quotas. Regional management has expressed concern about our sector's performance relative to others. Apparently, Sector Obscurus is outperforming us by 17% in souls corrupted per capita, and nobody wants being called into performance review explaining why we're not meeting standards set by peers. Competition drives excellence, even when excellence is measured in damnation. He walks to his desk, sits, picks up a stylus, starts processing forms with mechanical efficiency, suggesting he's been doing this much longer than the few hours since orientation. You return to your own forms. The stack hasn't shrunk. If anything, it's grown. Forms multiply when you're not looking. Or maybe time works differently now that you're consciously serving Chaos Incorporated. Or maybe work has always been infinite, and you're only now realizing the stack will never empty, that you'll be here processing forms forever, through death and beyond death, because death is just another employment state, and Chaos Incorporated has excellent afterlife benefits, including, but not limited to, eternal servitude in the warp, where linear time doesn't exist, so your shift never ends, and you never get to clock out, and rest becomes someone else's reality. The next form requires your discretionary authority. Planetary evacuation order for a world in the path of an approaching orc wag. Standard procedure. Evacuate critical personnel and Imperial Guard regiments, abandon civilian population, establish defensive positions on the next world in system. Expected civilian casualties 3 billion. But you have authority now. You could modify the order. You could approve additional evacuation transports. You could save some percentage of those 3 billion lives. Or you could do the opposite. You could reduce evacuation transports allocated. You could delay the order so it reaches the planet too late for organized evacuation. You could ensure Imperial Guard regiments are trapped on world when orcs arrive, forced to fight losing battle, generating maximum bloodshed and maximum entertainment for Khorne. You could turn 3 billion casualties into 5 billion, and those extra 2 billion deaths would be your contribution, your value, add your performance metric for the quarter. You choose the second option, not because you're evil, not because you enjoy suffering, but because you've been trained now, integrated. You understand that in Chaos Incorporated's calculus, more death is more product, and more product is better performance. And better performance is what keeps you employed rather than expendable. Self-interest has replaced morality as your decision-making framework, and self-interest under Chaos Incorporated's compensation structure incentivizes atrocity. You sign the modified order. File it. Somewhere in Sector Ultima, 5 billion people have just been condemned to die without ever knowing you exist, without ever learning their deaths were decided by a mid-level functionary sitting in a gray office on a Forge world processing forms to meet quarterly sacrifice quotas for entities existing beyond space and time. Your shift ends. The Vox-Unit announces 1800 hours. In a normal job, this is when you'd leave, when you'd go home to your hab unit and pretend for a few hours that life has meaning beyond labor. But you don't leave. Nobody leaves. Chalem is still processing forms. Yvette is still reviewing personnel files. Mordrin is still coordinating logistics. Your supervisor hasn't moved from where she stands in Office Center, her augmetic eye lenses sweeping back and forth across the workforce like a prison guard watching inmates. The concept of shift end has become theoretical. Employment is now ontological. You don't work for Chaos Incorporated. You are Chaos Incorporated. Your existence has been subsumed into corporate identity, and corporate identity doesn't clock out. But you try anyway. You stand, walk toward the exit. Your legs move, but the door doesn't get closer. You walk for what feels like hours, covering distance that should bring you to the door in seconds. But geometry has changed. The office is larger from inside now, or smaller, or perhaps size and distance concepts have stopped being reliable. You see the door. It's right there. But between you and the door are more desks, more gray, tunist workers, more form stacks needing processing, and the implication is clear. You can leave when work is done. Work is never done. Therefore, you can never leave. You return to your desk. Sit. Pick up another form. This one is different. The header shows your own name, employee Sigma 774 Kappa, status fully integrated, assignment indefinite. You're reading your own permanent employment contract, the terms governing your service to Chaos Incorporated in perpetuity. The clauses are extensive. You will work until the heat death of the universe. You will sacrifice your humanity in increments so small you won't notice each individual loss until you wake one day and realize you can't remember what being human felt like. You will recruit others. You will corrupt systems. You will serve the great game not through dramatic betrayals or obvious heresy, but through slow, grinding bureaucratic facilitation of horror. There's a clause about compensation. You're paid in several currencies simultaneously, standard imperial thrones, which you'll continue receiving, and which will continue being deposited into an account you'll never access because you no longer leave the facility. Knowledge which corrodes sanity but provides insights into the true mechanics of the Imperium and galaxy and existence itself. Power, which manifests as discretionary authority and also as literal power, the ability channeling warp energies through your body in ways that would get you burned as witch if anyone outside this facility ever witnessed them, and suffering, which you both inflict and receive in balanced proportion, because Chaos Incorporated believes in equitable misery distribution. You sign the contract. It's already signed. Your signature has always been on this contract. You signed it 11 years ago during initial hiring paperwork, when you scrawled your name on 17 different forms without reading any because nobody reads employment contracts, and that's what Chaos Incorporated counts on. You signed it before you were born when your soul was forged in the warp and tagged with designations that would guide you inevitably toward this desk. This job, this recognition moment. You sign it again now because the contract exists in superposition, requiring constant renewal. Your signature an ongoing sacrifice that must be performed with each breath, each heartbeat, each form processed. The office lights flicker. For a moment, walls become transparent, and you see what lies beyond them. Not the forge world, not the Imperium. The warp, close, and pressing, separated from reality by membrane, so thin you could push through with minimal effort. Daemons move on the other side of that membrane. Not attacking, working. They're sitting at desks made from solidified screaming. They're processing forms made from compressed souls. They're performing the same labor you're performing, but doing it directly in the warp, where the distinction between employee and product has dissolved entirely, where workers are simultaneously the work and the result of the work. You realize this is your future. This is where you're heading. One day the membrane will wear thin enough that you'll slip through without noticing, and you'll continue sitting at your desk processing forms without realizing you've died. Without understanding you're now a daemon-wearing human, shape memory. And the forms you process will be souls of people who worked jobs like yours and served systems like this and never questioned deeply enough, because questioning is dangerous and dangerous is unemployed and unemployed is dead. You'll become the thing you've been serving. You'll be fully integrated. You'll be Chaos Incorporated made manifest, a fragment of the Great Games administrative wing, and you'll be so efficient regional management will promote you, and division will commend you, and corporate will acknowledge your existence with the kind of attention that obliterates identity entirely and rebuilds it as pure function. The lights stabilize, walls become opaque again. You're still in your office, still at your desk, still breathing, still technically human, though the definition of human has become flexible, though your genetic code is corrupting in real time as Nurgle's plagues rewrite biology and Tzeentch's mutations reshape flesh and Slaanesh's influence rewires neural pathways and Khorne's rage armors bones. You're still you, mostly. For now, you pick up another form. The stack never ends. You have eternity to process it. You've always had eternity. You just didn't know it until today. Didn't understand that when you accepted this job 11 years ago, you accepted a position with no termination date, no retirement option, no exit strategy except transition from living employee to daemonic manifestation of corporate culture. This is what chaos gods running a corporation looks like. It looks like every corporation. It looks like every job. It looks like slow sacrifice of human dignity and meaning on productivity's altar, except usually that altar is metaphorical. Here, the metaphor has become grimly literal, and productivity reports are written in blood, and shareholders are entities feasting on despair, and profit margins are measured in souls. You keep working. You'll always keep working, because you're employee Sigma 7-4 Kappa, because you're fully integrated, because somewhere in conference room Tertius, which both does and doesn't exist, Tzeentch is already planning 17 different schemes requiring your participation. Khorne is tallying deaths your forms will authorize this quarter. Slaanesh is savoring exquisite agony of your slow corruption, and Nurgle is watching with paternal affection as his plagues establish themselves in your flesh, and all four are thinking the same thought in their own terrible ways. You're exactly the employee type they need. Reliable, efficient, utterly damned, and the forms keep coming, and the work never ends. And somewhere in Chaos Incorporated headquarters, heart, which exists in all places and no places simultaneously, your employee file has been updated, status permanent, performance exemplary, humanity deprecated, sole company property, and deep in facility substrata where you'll work forever. Something that might be machinery or might be something far worse hums with satisfaction, because another cog has been added to the machine, another soul integrated into the system, another employee clocked in for a shift lasting until stars burn out and the galaxy collapses, and even Chaos itself forgets why it started grinding human beings into currency in the first place. The form before you requests approval for increased tithes from an agri world already operating at subsistence levels. Approving means famine, means death, means children starving in fields they can't harvest because everything grown gets shipped off-world to feed wars they'll never see fought by people they'll never meet. You approve without hesitation. Your hand doesn't shake. The forms have taught you something valuable. Something Chaos Incorporated understood you'd learn eventually through simple repetition and exposure. Empathy is expensive. Compassion is inefficient. Morality is a luxury belonging to people who don't understand how the galaxy actually functions. And you understand now. You understand completely. The Imperium isn't being corrupted by chaos. The Imperium is chaos, has always been chaos, just wearing different branding, using different terminology, pretending cruelty serves the god emperor when it serves much older and much hungrier things. You file the form, move to the next, and the next, and the next, forever processing, forever serving, forever damned. This is what happens when the chaos gods odds run a corporation. They already do. They always have. They run it through you, through every employee who ever traded their soul for a paycheck. Through every form, processor and requisition, approver and report generator, who thought they were serving something noble when they were just feeding something hungry. The nightmare client meeting isn't coming. It's here. It's been here. It's every meeting you've ever attended where you nodded along to decisions serving quarterly projections at the expense of human dignity. Welcome to the team. Your orientation is complete. Your employment has commenced, and the quarterly projections look excellent.